And we're back with Activism Uncensored. Today, I have a wonderful guest, my friend Lex. Lex is a legal professional. Would you like to tell people what you do, Lex? I've been quite excited to get you on the show, actually. So, yeah, tell everyone what you do.
Well, I do lots. I got trained in law, and I've done law up to my postgrad at university, and then after that, as the pandemic was rolling out and I was looking for ways to connect with people, I got involved in activism, first through Extinction Rebellion, and then suddenly I was Insulet Britain Legal. So I was running the legal team for Insulet Britain, and that's how we met. And yeah, now I am running Climate Action Support Pathway, which is a separate entity from any campaign, but we're here to support anyone who takes action against this genocidal and ecocidal state. As long as that action is non-violent, I work to support all those individuals. So that's what I do now.
So you actually do quite a lot, don't you? Really?
So
It's quite difficult to condense everything that you do into a couple of sentences like that, really.
Yeah, I think I've gotten quite good with, like, anytime I do like a Zoom call, I've got like this one sentence, kind of like a tagline that comes along with my name, which is pretty much what I just said there, but I normally do it a bit quicker because I'm always... Well, I think I just talk a lot. I'm someone, I can just chat for hours, and I don't think that's necessarily what people want from people who hold Zoom calls, because there's already so many Zoom calls.
For podcasts. So
that's
this format is set up so you can
exactly.
You're the perfect guest.
I'm the perfect guest.
So we've had some arrests in London with Just Stop Oil, the slow marches. What do you think about this?
Yes. So it's hilarious in a way that this was very expected. So when I've been talking to different organisations, from Liberty and Netpol to then people who are taking part in the slow marches, we've very openly said that Section 12s and Section 14s, when they can apply it, will be applied, and police overreach will take place. I think it happened quicker than what we were thinking it would. And, frankly, I see us going more and more towards how Russia or China treat their protesters, where they are demonized, which is already happening here. Like, our ministers demonize normal everyday people who go onto the streets with a placard, and like, that's just, it's such vile behavior from our supposedly leaders. So I'm not surprised that
If we lose connection, just keep telling me what you're saying.
I'm not surprised
because you've got the audio on your side, so we'll have clear audio anyway.
Oh yeah, true. Oh, very smart. You get around these tech issues. But yeah, so I think I'm not surprised with what's happened. Obviously, I was hoping that it wouldn't happen and people could just practice their right to protest, which is enshrined in international and domestic law. However, the rhetoric that we've seen from, one, the media, and then two, our ministers, it comes as no surprise that then the public feels the way they feel. And, similarly, I think with what happened with Insulet Britain, the idea was that people would go and block a road and then tell the police that they were going to do it again. And when the police didn't, remand people, even though they should have and could have, that allowed the media and the public to kind of roll in their anger and just, become angered at the messenger rather than the actual target, which has been the government all this time. And again, now I was kind of looking at the coverage from today. So the coronation is happening today. I believe it kind of just finished with the procession. And honestly, it's really saddening to see that the rhetoric from a lot of journalists is that, like, oh, why couldn't you pick another day to protest? There's 355 other days in a year. Let the people celebrate this. But yeah, and it's like we can't get away from the coronation. Literally, when I was walking from the bus stop to my house earlier today, there are like 2 street parties, and then it was like, volunteer for the council. Why would I fucking volunteer for the council if to celebrate a billionaire, you know, appointed by God, you know, twat who now gets to sit on a very nice chair with a expensive crown on, with all of those jewels on the crown being stolen from other nations? Why should I celebrate that? Like, he's not my king. I'm not anyone's subject. And the fact that, you know, we see, you know, no matter if you don't agree with Republicans or Just Stop Oil or whatever other protest movement there is, you know, even I don't agree with like the anti-lockdown protest or like their argument, you know, that we shouldn't have had lockdowns. Obviously, I was still really vocal about our duty to protect their right to protest. So even anti-vaxxers, if they're protesting about not wanting to get vaccinated, I don't agree with you, but I will do anything to protect your right to protest about it. And the fact that we just see that just because you don't agree with someone not celebrating the coronation, then they get arrested. Like, it just, yeah, it angers me. But yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's pretty messed up, really. This country is slowly sliding towards some kind of fascist, dictatorial, lack of human rights regime, and it worries me because when the climate really does start to stumble, and we have a 6-month drought or something, and we have food shortages for the first time, it's gonna kick off. And I feel like the government are kind of getting ready for that, like with these new big prisons they're building and with all these new laws they're bringing in. Well,
yeah. Well, they are bringing in. Well, they've started to build. Is it 4 or 5 maximum?
I don't have that
like,
information
max prison
to hand
facilities.
right now.
I can't. But yeah, it's nuts because they are building. So I was reading the kind of the stats of what they're doing. So currently, I believe it's England and Wales where there is 86,000 prisoners, give or take some. And with that 86,000 prisoners that there are currently in prisons, they're like, well, we're at max prison capacity. So rather than release those people from prison who do not need to be there, and I'm not even, saying that we should abolish all prisons, even though I do believe that myself, but I'm not even saying that that's something that we need to push for now. I don't think our society is necessarily ready for that, but I think, we have so many people in prison who, one, are on remand for non-violent crime. I'm sure you can understand what that's like. We've got, and it's, we've got people who've committed non-violent crime who are like caught with a joint or one speeding ticket and they get sent to prison. And it's disgusting that our government's solution for a full prison and a full prison system was first to ask for permission from the Ministry Ministry of Justice that they can use police cells as prison cells temporarily, whilst they're building and adding to our prison capacity by 20,000 new places in prison. That's like a quarter more than what we have. We've got 86,000, and now we're building so we can get another 20,000 people in. Guess who'll those be? Like those people will, one, be marginalized communities. It will be, trans folk. It will be people of color, especially young men of color. It will be activists. It will be, for sure, it will be, Republicans who are going against the crown. It will be climate protesters. It will most likely, when people are actually realizing that the climate crisis and the cost of living crisis come very hand in hand and people are running out of food, it will be the people who shoplift to feed their families. It's nuts. We should be building prison cells. Like, if we're building prison cells, we should be building those for our politicians.
Could we not do...
That's why I strongly feel.
These prisons are being built at our place, and I know I work in construction myself, so I know that a construction job can be slowed down a hell of a lot. Like, could they not be sabotaged, the buildings of these prisons, and set back decades and decades in costing, so they never actually complete it? That's...
Yeah, I know that there were protesters at one of the sites where they were actually taking down ancient woodland. I can't remember where it was. Maybe it was like Hertfordshire or somewhere. And they did, those like bamboo tripods. They did have a couple of them at the site, and they were arrested. But they were blocking access to the site, I think, for like 10 hours or something. So that's the only kind of thing I've seen people do. I think it's definitely a viable option, protesting against mass prison facilities. I know that in the US, where they are doing something quite similar, where they're building the police training city or something. I can't remember which state it's in. I'm thinking Ohio, but it might not be, so I don't want to get it wrong. But where they're building that massive police training city, and they're gonna basically, they're working to be more of a police state than what they already are, and that's where the climate activist Tortuga, I think his name is Tortuga, who was 26, he was shot by the police.
How and when?
So
why? How, when, and why? Why was he shot?
This would have been about 2 or 3 months ago, and he was shot. Yeah, he was shot for protecting trees because they were taking down again ancient woodland to build a police training city. And he was shot by the police.
Was he running, or was he
and he was 26.
running from them, or was he running towards them, or do we know anything about this? Or sorry, I'm just really curious.
I can't remember the details. I did read about it, and there was a really beautiful article about how he'd been, he was a very well-known like tree protector. And, the comments I read about him, or like the obituary, I guess, was very, I could so see, our friend Marcus, who is also a very well-known tree protector. I could see that kind of Marcus spirit in the text that I was reading, that like, unconditional love for all living beings, and the lack of hate within that person. And it's just, I think, I can't remember any of the details now about, how he was shot, but obviously he was unarmed, and for some reason I think that he was shot from the back, but I can't remember if that was another case I read. But there's it's just vile. what's happening and how much violence can be used,
Can I ask you a
against
question?
peaceful individuals.
How do you think the UK compares
Of course.
to cracking down on climate activists, like to other countries in Europe, like Germany, France? Do you have any idea about?
Yeah, so I think the UK police generally have been not as violent in their arrests as they have been in Germany and in France. I think French particularly, they have the National Guard, and the National Guard tends to be, it's more like facing the military rather than the police. So I feel that what I've seen from their arrest videos is it does seem a lot more violent. The police tend to be a lot more aggressive, whereas in the UK, I feel that where it's now gone is that the arrests happen before the actual protest even takes place. And we saw that today. 21 Just Stop Oil protesters were arrested just for the fact that they were wearing Just Stop Oil t-shirts, and a couple of them had placards.
What were they on the road? Were they slow marching?
And
or?
We saw. No, they were literally just standing near where the King's procession was going to go past. And similarly, I don't know the exact number, but around 20 Republicans have also been arrested, and they didn't even get to the protest. They were arrested on their way in the morning, and they had a van of placards, and those placards, just placards that didn't say anything else except "Not My King," and they were arrested and all of the placards taken. Like, at least leave the placards. There's nothing criminal about placards. That's like, when we were kind of seeing the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act come into force last year, and people were saying like, oh, well, you can still hold a placard and like peacefully protest. Well, no, you can't. I think that's kind of the difference between the rest of Europe that I can say, is that here the arrest happened before the protest takes place. And
that is scary.
That's scary. Like, the fact that they could, and the fact that they can infiltrate movements, and that they are so willing to do so. And, there was, I can't remember what the book is called, but it was about how the Met Police had infiltrated climate movements in the late 90s and early noughties, and how that actually had a huge impact on the whole mobilization of people who were concerned about the environment. And there were all these, kind of... Apologies, that's the dog. Someone's coming in. And basically, it's, we were... Oh, I can't remember what I was saying.
What you were saying then is the police infiltrated the climate movement, and that had a big effect on the recruitment of people into the climate movement.
Yes.
So how did it affect it?
Yeah, and... Well, there was basically the stories that came out, which were all these male police officers basically leading double lives, and one, even had a child with one of the people as an undercover police officer, and how messed up it is that all of these, that the police can infiltrate movements and undermine political organization and undermine freedom of assembly, which it frankly is. It's our freedom of assembly. So, that's... It's crazy that we allow that to happen, and we just, the amount of journalists that come to, infiltrate Zoom calls, and then suddenly the journalists are working with the police. And, for example, I think the the arrest that happened, or the arrests in November, where the Sun had infiltrated a Zoom call from Just Stop Oil, and basically recorded the call and gave all of it to the police. And when the police went and arrested people and raided their homes, Sun got a deal with the police that because they've given them the information, they're allowed to film the arrests and the raids. Which, how nuts is that? Like, how is our, like, very right-wing, you know, billionaire-owned media allowed to work together with the police that way and kind of, like, buy content from the police? It's wild.
It really is. It really is, isn't it?
It's absolutely wild.
God. What did you... So, we've spoken a lot about... Do you remember my bail conditions? Where I couldn't talk about protesting. I've spoken a bit about the podcast, but what was your opinion about the bail conditions that I received coming out of prison at the end of last December?
I find it... it angers me that our judges are so ready to take away people's rights, which, like, putting it just plainly, we have rights. Everyone has human rights. It's just not debatable. And those human rights need to be respected. And yes, obviously, there are restrictions that can be applied when it is necessary to do so to, you know, prevent greater harm. But judges are meant to be reading the law and applying the law. The fact that judges are so willing to scrap people's rights, which are enshrined in law, is really worrying. Why are they a judge? Because they're clearly applying their own political agenda if they're taking someone's rights away, such as freedom of speech. Like, freedom of speech is quite a fucking basic right. We have been and should always be allowed to speak. No matter if people don't agree with us, we're allowed to speak about whatever we want. You can't take that away. And the fact that they did that to you, and the fact that you had to argue to try and get your rights back, you know, I'm shocked that it happened. I am glad that bail condition was lifted. And, you know, there are others as well who have similar-ish kind of bail conditions. Like, there's someone, actually
really?
quite a few people from within Just Stop Oil, who have bail conditions that say that they are not allowed to attend any climate protest.
I can't attend any protest, not just climate protest. Mine just says protest.
Which, like, I'm sorry, but I understand if the bail condition would be not allowed to commit any criminal offence at a protest or as part of a protest. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's, you know, they're trying to prevent offences. But just the fact that you can be banned from attending protest as a bystander or as a photographer or just going to see your friends, that's just... It's, you know, it's such judicial overreach that, you know, it makes me really uncomfortable. It makes me really, really uncomfortable.
Makes me honestly, it makes me ashamed of our...
There we go.
Our government and our judiciary. Like, they're supposed to be, like, pretty good. Like, the British legal system is supposed to be pretty, you know, fair, or so I've heard, you know. And it seems to be all... We seem to be losing that within just a year, 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and we've gone from having human rights to not having human rights, and it just seems like it's happening very quickly, and nobody even seems to realise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because, you know, our government is openly saying that they're trying to make sure that the European Court of Human Rights wouldn't have any jurisdiction in the UK. And I think it's like, partly it's funny because they thought that the European Court of Human Rights had something to do with the EU. So they were like, how does it still have jurisdiction when we've left the EU? And it's like, it's separate. Like, if you work within politics, at least understand how European systems work before you start yelling about them. And two, the fact that you want a human rights court not to have jurisdiction is a fucking worrying sign. That's what Hitler did. Like, that's the point where we're getting to, you know, saying like, this group of people do not have rights. That's, you know, it's a very, like, it's so right-wing that I don't think it can get any more right-wing unless we, you know, bringing the ghettos and trains and gas chambers.
Do you think it could go that far?
Next bit. And it's...
Would this government?
Well, I think... So I actually had a very interesting conversation just last night with someone, and we were kind of debating whether the British military would be ready to take orders to kill their own people.
Surely not.
And my argument was that yes, they would, because people would know. So people who go to the military and serve for the military has massive reserves so that the military can be sustained during time of crisis. So if you're part of the military, you would know that being part of the military would protect yourself and your family. So let's say 20 years from now, there's been 10 summers. We've had 10 summers with extreme heat, and crop failure is so high that we literally just have no food. Like, it's come to the point where, you know, there's water shortages, there's food shortages, and frankly, people are dying. Imagine then having, because obviously none of these hot summers and heat waves come without other natural disasters. So we would have, let's say, east of England was flooding. So there's a couple villages who then, you know, those villages need to get evacuated, and the military's told to go and evacuate them. That's about 10,000 people, and they know that if the military evacuates these 10,000 people, they're going to be brought into a military base or somewhere close by where the military would feed them. Everyone in the military would know that that means that their resources are going down. At what point do you think that the herd mentality of I want to protect myself and my family and the men and women who I work with, rather than these strangers I don't know, what point do you think that there would be an order to say, just leave them at the bus stop and just shoot them all in a row? Because I think that's completely possible. I don't think that we're there yet, and I really hope that we don't come to that point. But thinking about what the military is and what military training does to you, you're trained to kill people in the military. Let's not try and like sugarcoat what the military is. It's not just following orders. It is that you know how to kill. You're a soldier. You're meant to be protecting the crown. That's frankly what it is. One, I hope that, you know, when the cost of living crisis and climate crisis go to that point where, you know, people can't afford to food, I hope that people will storm Buckingham Palace first.
He won't be there.
But,
the king won't.
you know,
they'll abandon Buckingham Palace.
Oh yeah, they would have been in bunkers way before this. Or probably not even bunkers. They would just have a massive estate somewhere in Buckinghamshire or somewhere else where they could just stay in their fortified.
I want to run something by you though,
castle.
Lex. Right? Imagine. Now this might be me being a dreamer, right? But can you imagine if Justapoil really did create a movement that brought down the British government and put a People's Assembly in place? And imagine just for a second that we kept King Charles in place, and then he gave the new government a royal assent in front of all the other countries of the world, and in front of the Commonwealth, and in front of like the judiciary, and in front of like all of the right-wing royalists.
I feel two ways about that because I do understand that if the king would give, royal assent and kind of like a blessing to a citizens' assembly, there would be such huge support from the royalists, which we might not otherwise get until it's kind of too late. But at the same time, I fundamentally disagree with the existence of monarchy, and I find it difficult to see how people who would want to establish citizens' assemblies, how they would feel about holding on to a monarchy, which is frankly just not relevant anymore.
Is it not relevant?
And also, at what point does the citizens' assembly get the right to say, we're not funding this fucking king? Like, at what point can we opt out from being subjects? Because I don't want to be anyone's subject.
Well, it'd be a law. You could, if that's what they decided, then. But I was just looking at it purely like a tactical move. Like the royal family could be a unifying. Well, a lot of people on the left wouldn't be happy about it. But if you got your revolution at the end of the day, and it was only king by name, and nothing else. And it was to unify the country in that way, and it could be I don't know. It's just me.
Yeah.
Me daydreaming
Frankly,
about it.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, I think it has. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I feel quite conflicted about it. I understand what kind of benefit it could bring, but I don't know if those benefits would outweigh the kind of the immoral positioning of a king above the citizens. And frankly, it's citizens' assembly, not subjects' assembly. It's citizens coming together as equals, rather than anyone being, held on a higher podium. And how can you have the king on the same level as everyone else? And frankly, like, our current king, like, he's not that smart either. Like, not that I think school grades say anything about a person, but the fact that he was never anyone to kind of be like, oh wow, he's super smart, he's so clever.
Might have something to do with the inbreeding over a few hundred years.
Yeah, I know. His parents were cousins after all. Which I also find that... Sorry, I'm just going to have to plug my computer in. I probably should have prepared myself better for this, but
I think it's going well. Your audio recording is still going.
No, it's not.
Brilliant.
Yes.
I'm just
still going.
Enough lost talk for a second. I'd just like to say I've been missing you because I used to speak to you every single day.
Oh, I missed you too.
All the time from prison.
I know. Yeah. And I would have to be in a certain spot in my house so I could hear you.
Are you cool with talking about what we did together whilst I was in prison, with the affirmations and stuff? Because I think that's quite powerful, really.
Yes.
So I remember,
yeah.
just people to realise this all started one day when I was speaking to you on the phone, and you said something negative about yourself, and I went, whoa, stop right there. I said, Lex, do you like yourself? And I think you said something like, no, I fucking hate myself. And that was it. I was off on one. And I got you doing affirmations every day, didn't I? I'd ring you up and I'd say, right, repeat after me. And I'd say things like, Do you like to
Yeah.
do your affirmations on the podcast?
Yeah, they've changed a lot from the original ones, because the original ones, it's now been like, how long has it been? Like,
Well, I had 4
9
months
months,
left.
I think.
I remember when we started, I had 4 months to go to February, to the start of February. So that would have been all of January, all of December, October, November. It would have been like November, yeah. So quite a while ago.
No, it would have been earlier than that. It would have been a lot earlier than that. Because I remember what was kind of happening during my life at the time. And I remember I was just about to start therapy. And I started therapy in September.
That's right, yeah.
Which, yeah. Yeah, so I think we would have started chatting daily around September time, like early September.
Yeah, I'm glad for it.
Mid-September, maybe.
I got you doing affirmations. So affirmations are things like saying, "I forgive myself for all my past mistakes. I have a deep love for who I am."
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've now created a little bit of a different routine to myself around my affirmations, and I think I've added a little bit. I don't know how you would feel about this, or I haven't actually told you, but basically, a lot of the times now when I do it, I don't just want to say something. I want to think of an example of it. So when I'm saying, like, to myself, let's say I am hardworking, and I'm intelligent, then I think about basically all the things I did the other day, if I'd been, holding different calls or wrote a brief, and I kind of just want to get some, like, substance.
You visualising it. I don't know.
I don't know if that's
that's the way to do it. You honestly, you're leveling up with it. The way I explain to people is when I say I love the person that I am, or I have a deep love for myself. When you say the word love, it's not like 4 letters, LOVE. I want you to think of like think of your children, think of your mother, think about someone in your life, and remember what that love actually feels like. Feel the feeling of love when you and then imagine yourself.
Yeah.
I love myself. And that emotional connection is way more powerful than just the words. And it might sound vain to some people, but this is the best thing you can do for your mental health. I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites that I do is one of the very early affirmations that I was doing with you was one of them was "People enjoy my company," and I think that one it's become such like mood lifter for me, because I'll say to myself, "People enjoy my company," and I'll just start bringing up memories of just laughter and love with my friends, and that's definitely, I've had, some like, if something kind of sad has happened, or I'm just having like a really, exhausting day, I will do that and just be like, oh, that moment of laughter that I had with that person, or, when we went salsa dancing, like the amount of laughter that we had, and like all of these like just good memories, and I like backing the affirmations up with that, and I think that's been like extremely powerful, because it's not just, it's like quantifying the affirmations and the reality behind them, so they're not just words, and I do actually feel that way. So I think, it's definitely, I've told my therapist about it, and like how I've used them, and she's very proud of me as well, and she always says, like, when I started with her in September, like how distressed and like in like a slight crisis I was in, because I just didn't know, I couldn't get the kind of like a safe space within my head to go about just daily stuff. And I think, it's been amazing when people have actually told me, being like, oh, you you actually seem like you're calm and you're good with what's happening, even though life is bloody stressful, and we are living in unprecedented times. It's completely nuts what we're living through, and what we have been living through, like our whole lives as millennials. We've lived through, kind of like our first ever memories would be 9/11, Iraq War, collapse of the economy. We had swine flu, and then another bit of technology and collapses, banks going down, and then another pandemic and the climate crisis, wrapping all of this together, and us living in this bloody weird, like our parents saying, oh, just go to university and you'll get a really good job. Yeah, and 70 grand worth of loans, which my parents didn't have, but they just bought a house. Like it's such a different time that we're living in. We haven't had pay rises the way that our parents had. We haven't had, we've had to keep up with technology to an extent to like just feel valid in society, and with like social media and the ever-changing trends on what to be and who to be. And I think finally we have a trend of looking after yourself, like with mental health. That's finally trendy, which is beautiful. And I think, finally we're like millennials and Gen Z are kind of taking in all the pride of looking after yourself, which, baby boomers could have done that too, but they didn't. So now we're stuck with their problems.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of messed up stuff, really, isn't there? What really terrifies me is I've got a 2-year-old goddaughter, right? I mean, what's from her being 2 to 22, what's she gonna see?
Yeah, it's actually frightening. It is frightening because, with like, the latest IPCC report, we even, we keep getting these like final warnings, and our decision makers, our policy makers aren't taking those final warnings as warnings. They're taking them as fake news, or I don't even know, like, did our Home Office or our, Ministry for the Environment, did they even acknowledge the report? Because I didn't hear anything. And it's, we know, like the everyday, lay person knows that we're going past the 1.5 degrees Celsius. And when we go past that, that's already where there's going to be a lot of problems. The 1.5 wasn't like, yeah, if we stick at 1.5, everything's going to be sweet. That already means millions of people becoming climate refugees. That already means wildfires and food shortages. But the fact that but if you're looking at the current policies, and if nothing changes, we're at 3.2 degrees by the end of the century. That's nuts. And also, like, the people don't understand that 3.2 degrees Celsius does not mean, every summer will be 3.2 degrees warmer, because that's global temperature, and most of our planet is ocean. So land temperature is going to be 10, 15 degrees higher than it was, because oceans are the ones trapping most of the heat. And currently, we already have the highest ever recorded temperatures of our oceans, which means the oceans aren't oxidizing. So basically, oceans aren't holding in any of that carbon dioxide. I was like carbon monoxide. I was like, I can't say that. That's the wrong one. And we'll have dead oceans in 15 years. We already have more plastic in the oceans than we have fish. What are we doing? What are we doing? What is your goddaughter going to do?
Dead planet with dead oceans.
Like, you know, she's... Yeah, and, like, if we have dead oceans, we have dead people. We have dead everything. And, you know, we're... Like, frankly, we're already paying so much in fixing what the, you know, weather events currently are doing. Imagine in 5 years, imagine in 10 years, the amount of money that goes into fixing roads from floods and mudslides and hurricanes. And, you know, the fucking cement and building foundations are going to start cracking. Imagine the money. And, like, where's that money coming from? It's not like the rich are then going to be like, oh, let's now start taxing us. You know, that's all going to come to the poor people. That's all going to just mean that those who suffer from the climate emergency first will not be helped out. They'll die. And like, maybe, like, frankly, maybe that is the plan of the rich. They're just expecting climate crisis to take out, you know, 1 billion people. And then they'll see how they can bring about new world order. I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, like, once you get below past 2 degrees, it locks in tipping points that pushes to 3 degrees. And then the melting permafrost, the retreating ice, the collapsing rainforests brings on more heating. We're going to get to 4 degrees. And even if you're dead and buried by then, your children and your children's children, they will be damned because it'll be 5 degrees, 6 degrees, 7 degrees. When does it stop? Where will it be 500 years from now? Does it ever stop? I mean, so
yeah.
One thing to be concerning is there's been studies of Venus, the planet Venus. It's like there's a massive percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and the average temperature is 400 degrees on the planet surface. Right, and they're looking at the planet, and there used to be rivers and oceans and lakes, but something happened in that planet where it began heating up. It passed tipping points that produced more carbon, and it just ran off until you could melt lead on the surface of Venus. Like, do you think? I'm not a planetary scientist, and you're not a planetary scientist, so we can't really. Neither of us are really specialised in that. But what we do know is we're looking at the Earth's 6th mass extinction event, at least, with the extinction of the majority of the plants and animals and the death of 99% plus of life on Earth. Like, that's pretty much a given with the climate crisis. I'm hoping to get some scientists on from Science Rebellion soon, so they can, you know. You are my expert in law right now, though.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I want go on.
Yeah,
go on.
I think... No, I was just going to say I had very interesting discussions with some barristers yesterday, and the whole thing was about, like, you know, how barristers, they work with this idea of, you know, like, if the justice system is just, you know, even if your client or who you get instructed by is, let's say, a paedophile, they still deserve a fair trial, and then they would be found guilty, and then they would be sentenced accordingly. So, you know, as a barrister, you'll just do your job. But then we were talking about, you know, what the reality is for barristers when they realise that they're not actually working in a proper justice system. It's a very unjust criminal system that we have, and what lawyers and barristers have realised that they're working for the bad guys, and they're, you know, working for the bad guy would be fine if the result from that would still be a just result, you know, that the bad guy would get the bad result, but that's not what's happened, and I think that's why it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of the outcome is for people who realize that what their professions and their jobs are meant to do and are meant to do it, you know, as a bigger part of the society, when they realize that that's not actually what is happening. What are the options for them to take part in non-violent civil resistance? And I think lawyers currently, so that the group Lawyers Are Responsible, have shown some pretty epic kind of results from that. You know, they've been on the news now quite a bit, and I think there's a lot happening from the legal profession, and hopefully soon we will have, you know, no lawyers wanting to work for the bad guy. That's basically what we're hoping.
There'll always be a few, you know, evil lawyers.
There'll always be a few. Yeah. But the thing is, you know, to work for a fossil fuel company as their, you know, leading lawyers and leading legal team, you get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. Like, you know, you could easily be on $500,000 a year, which is absolutely nuts. And, you know, unfortunately it is the money that will guide so many people in these decisions.
It's, you know, in my opinion, like, I feel like voting through the current political system, I don't think we're going to solve this problem by voting for the Green Party, you know? I remember I was speaking once, and you know, and I think I can't remember if it was you or someone else that said it to me, but we need to start seizing bank accounts, start seizing assets, and arresting, literally arresting people, and arresting the Met, like our own police force are going into the Home Office and walking them out in handcuffs, like. Backed by 10 million people, stood shoulder to shoulder throughout the streets of London. Not what's been non-violent.
Yeah. That was, you know, when the big one happened a couple weeks ago, and the last day we did a march from like Parliament Square to the headquarters of Shell on South Bank. And while we were approaching Shell, there was like 20, 30 like police car, like Pixies, like the vans, parked up in a line, plus all the private security. And I was just looking at the numbers of us, and I was like, there's like a good almost 10,000 people here. What if we all just very calmly walked into Shell and conducted a little citizen's arrest with their CEO, couple of their, you know, head of marketing, head of finance, just take them down. I honestly think that, you know, we need to go after the big fish now. You know, we need to start taking down leaders of corporations, leaders of political parties who are destroying this planet, leaders of lobby groups, leaders of animal agriculture industry and the lobby groups that are responsible for not including animal agriculture and fossil fuels. Exactly. Yeah. The big financiers of fossil fuels, so head of Barclays, like, HSBC.
The agricultural ministers, like beef and chicken and the massive corporations.
Exactly.
But
yeah, I think there's, you know, we have so many people who care, but frankly, most of the people who care don't have the money to have an effect on these power relations that happen in decision making. And, you know, I think if if going in and arresting people, actually taking away someone's liberty with enough evidence that it is a justified thing to do so, and prompting a real criminal investigation on, against these people, if that's
now,
the way to do it.
Do you think that me and you personally could be at risk of arrest for what we've just said on this show?
In this country, yes. Frankly, as we said in the beginning, a protest doesn't even need to take place anymore. So, yeah, I think we've committed some thought crime, according to our government now. But, I think one thing that I kind of want to leave with you here is when I moved to this country, and I was living in Finland for about 9 months before I came here, and my dad, who still lives in Finland, he was very excited about me moving here and coming to finish my postgrad and working in law and so on. And every time I tell him what's new and what's happened, I share, some sort of a newspaper article. And a lot of the times it's about basically the police state that we've become. And his casual, very common, very heard response now is, I thought you moved west, not east. And he's very anti-Russia because he's from Karelia, which was flattened by the Soviet Union during World War. But yeah, he's always shocked that, he thought what he had in his mind of Britain and of the UK, that in reality that's not what it is. And yeah, he always just makes these sly comments about UK being more Russia than Russia is. So yeah, I think that's where we are now, and hopefully with the next elections we'll be repealing a lot of these
no time for election. No time for the elections. Labour, I feel like we should drag them out by their hair, really, and
Yes, I wish there was a vote of no confidence from the public. Can we do that?
Can you imagine?
Because I think a vote of no confidence
could just a pilot and could the
so
movements
good.
come together. All the movements come together and put a petition around for a vote of no confidence in not just in Labour, in Conservative, but in Parliament in general. Not the British government, but in Parliament.
Yeah, that would be really good. That would be really good. I wonder what the way to do that. But this is the thing, though. Even if it's a petition, when it gets to the number of signatures, which is it the 100,000 or 200,000 signatures that it needs, so it's discussed in Parliament or in the House of Commons, even then, they can just say, oh, there was this petition, and then strike it out. There is no need for them to actually take that petition...
Well, they don't even have to attend, do they?
...seriously, which, again, is nuts, but... No, they don't. They can just skip that one.
Yeah, they can. They could just, Parliament doesn't have to attend,
which,
so they could just read the petition out to an empty room then, and then it's been read out in Parliament.
Exactly. Nuts. Isn't it lovely to be alive in this country?
Yeah, no, it really is.
Oh. On a happy note, though, I wanna talk about a new book that I just got, because it's about Britain, and it's made me quite happy. Obviously, it's a little bit sad, but it's called The Lost Rainforest of Britain, by Guy Shrubsole, and dog's making a visit. Hello. And it's a beautiful story about the fact that we have rainforests in this country, and it has beautiful pictures in it.
Hang on, hold it back up again. Hold it back up again.
It's just it.
Wow. Yeah, they look really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really beautiful, and I was really happy that on page 5, it first mentions the climate crisis and how that's a huge reason why right now we're losing most of our
and HS2.
Britain's rainforests. Yeah, and HS2. And it's so, it's shocking because it actually, the book basically starts off by saying, that 20% of the UK landmass actually has the perfect weather conditions for rainforest to exist. And that's temperate rainforests, which we have. But only 13% of the UK landmass currently has any tree coverage. And that 13% is mainly timber plantations. So it's not even natural woods. And, how little rainforests actually cover this this country anymore, even though we live in, perfect conditions for it. But yeah, it's something to fight for, just the revival of the British rainforest.
No, you don't. So what's your dog called? Dobby.
Dobby. Oh, he's... Oh, praise the dog.
The dog is now on the podcast.
He's very... Yeah, he's very cuddly and always thinks that he's very needed in any moment. So he'll literally just push his face into you and just be like, "Oh, looks like you need me now."
These podcasts are usually an hour, and we've gone over an hour now, and I don't see any reason why we have to end it any time. I mean, unless you're in a rush to go somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I've got another call at 4. And I'll give you shower before that.
Give us 5-10 minutes, and then is that reasonable?
Yeah, that's good.
Can I say, with the slow
reasonable.
marching in London, I really, really, really want to go to this.
Yeah.
I'm so. I'm so.
Of course you do.
Jealous, sat on the sidelines, I'm I want to be arrested. No. Yeah, no, I don't really. You know what I'm getting at. I think if I was tag free right now, I would do every single region's action phase back to back, without a break. I'm not even joking. I'll just live in London continuously. I'd probably eat out of bins because I've got no money, and I'd just get arrested continuously, or not get arrested because slow marching's supposed to be legal.
Yep, it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be.
That'd be so awesome because I'd get to meet everybody. I'd get to meet everybody from all of Just a Poil, from every region, week after week after week after week after week. And instead, I'm fucking tagged. I'm stuck. At least I can talk about protesting now, though. But
yeah, exactly. At least you can talk about protesting, and I think, frankly, I love seeing people taking part in any protest, even if it would be a protest that I don't agree with, or I don't agree with what they're asking for or what they're demanding. And seeing so many people take part in the slow marches and knowing that our government is going above and beyond in criminalizing everyday people, rather than just fucking sitting down and cancelling the oil licenses, which every single scientist is saying them not to do. And same with the International Energy Agency is saying don't do it, and the UN is saying don't do it, and our government's just saying, oh, but the money. And the fact that slow marching, which is literally just walking down a street with a placard or a banner, is a threat to this government and the power that they hold. It says a lot about the people who sit in Parliament. It just, I think they're very, well, they're scared, clearly. They're scared of people power. And they know that they're not liked, and they know that people will only support them in cracking down on protest after they've, gotten the media to be all riled up, and the media works to rile up the public, and then all the rhetoric they use. So, it's none of this is happening by accident. And it's just amazing to see that normal, everyday people with regular jobs, with families, with friends, from all around the country are willing to still put their bodies on the line against our state. And our state has the monopoly on violence. They can decide to roll in with the army. The police, even they say, oh, we don't carry weapons. Yeah, you fucking do. You've got a baton on your belt. That's a weapon. Like, you could beat me to death if you wanted to. And I have nothing, and it's the fact that people are courageous enough to do that and put themselves out there, particularly people from more marginalized communities and, trans folk and people of color. The fact that they are brave enough to come and join, like, where are the rest of the people? The people who are just way too comfortable currently, like, come on out and join, because there's people who have been historically attacked and killed by our state. Our state is coming after all of us very, very soon. So if you're not standing up now,
when it's too late,
what point will you? That's basically, yeah, when all the rights are taken away.
Well, I think that's a pretty good roundup to the episode. I've absolutely loved having you. I've loved having you on.
Yeah, I think that's a little. Well, yes, I'll be a regular guest anytime.
We've not even delved into that part of like you or who you are at all yet, because there's so much more.
No, we haven't.
So
we've got lots to talk
briefly,
about.
Tell us about the other things you do quickly.
Other things I do. I spend a lot of time with my dog. I teach forest school for children in my local area. I forage a lot. And actually on Thursday, what we did with the children, we made a springtime tonic. So we basically made like a lemonade from daisies and dandelions and cleavers and nettle, and it was really delicious. And next week I'll be making some 3-cornered leek and nettle pesto.
That sounds lovely.
So, I do fun things like that as well. So it's not all law and legal text in my life. I love nature, and I love the innocence and the curiosity and pure-heartedness of children. And I'm doing this for all children and for all adults and all living beings. Love. So just reminding myself, yeah, exactly. And just, being outdoors is just reminding me of what this earth is giving me. And it's giving me life. It's giving me love. It's giving me freedom. It's giving me so much. And, if the best I can do is support regular people who are trying to protect this earth, I'll do that.
You are incredible,
I'll support
Lex,
all of you.
And I've said it before, I'll say it again. You are very incredible.
So are you.
You're very influential, and you don't give yourself enough credit, to be honest. With all the things that you do, and I will have you on the show again. Right, so I'm just going to round off by saying, if you've liked this content on Activism Uncensored, then please drop us a like, subscribe, and we now have a Patreon, which will be in the links in the description of the video. So if you like what we do and you think we could have some better recording equipment, which I honestly do think we need, then please consider subscribing on Patreon, and on there you will see exclusive content. You'll see behind the scenes stuff and a lot of my journaling stuff that hasn't been put out in the public yet will be on there too. So I hope to see you soon, and signing off.
Sweet. All right. Lots of love to everyone, and get on the streets.